Hey everyone, this is Senti Reads, and as you can see by the video title, today I'll be covering one of R.L. Stine's lesser-known Goosebumps books. I remember loving Goosebumps as a kid, but I don't actually remember many of the books themselves. I only ever remember being afraid of the book with the dummy in it, but nevertheless, the series sparked my interest in horror, and I think a lot of people remember these books fondly, and the TV show as well. I think I watched more of the TV show than reading the books. But anyway, I wanted to make a video about the series and decided that it would be more fun to read some of the less popular, lesser-known books. There are 253 books total in the Goosebumps universe, but the original run contained 62 books. It started in 1992 with Welcome to Dead House and ended with Monster Blood 4 in 1997. The first book I'll be covering in today's video is called Chicken Chicken. It is the 53rd book in the original series and was published in 1997. I've never read this one, I've never heard of this one, and I didn't recognize the cover, so I picked it up. You can see the cover here. It's pretty silly, depicting a chicken with a girl's head. The background is vaguely spooky with a thunderstorm and a creepy farm. I think this is one of the tamer, less interesting covers I've seen for the series. That might be why I never read this one, or maybe my school didn't have this one, I'm not so sure. This cover just doesn't stand out to me in the way that the other ones did. But that's enough about the other books, let's move on to Chicken Chicken. Thanks to the Goosebumps wiki, I was able to find a concise blurb for the novel. Don't call them chicken legs. Everyone in Goshen Falls knows about Weird Vanessa. She dresses all in black, wears black lipstick, and puts spells on people. At least that's what they say. Crystal and her brother Cole, no, you can't believe everything you hear. But that was before they made Vanessa mad, before she whispered that strange warning, chicken, chicken, because now something really weird has happened. Crystal's lips have turned as hard as a bird's beak, and Cole has started growing ugly white feathers all over his body. Turning into a chicken doesn't sound particularly scary to me, but I can see the potential for body horror here as they transform into chickens. The trivia section in the wiki states that some blogger named Troy Steele rated this as Goosebumps' worst book, but we'll be the judge of that, so let's jump right into Chicken Chicken. The book opens with this golden line: I hate chickens. They are filthy creatures, and they smell like chickens. Our Goosebumps is known to be funny, so I really like that. We establish that Crystal, who is 12, and Cole, her younger brother, who is 10, both hate chickens despite their parents being hobbyist chicken farmers. I say hobbyist because they actually are still computer programmers. Yay, STEM rep for women. Her mother is a computer programmer too, which I love. But they happen to have a chicken coop in their backyard. They originally lived in New York and moved to Goshen Falls to follow their dreams of being a farmer. I don't know that there would be a lot of computer programmer jobs in this tiny town of Goshen Falls. Let's not nitpick too much. This is a book for children. We get this weird throwaway line about Crystal being pretty when she goes into town with her brother. I just love your hair, Crystal, Mrs. Wagner called. It's such a beautiful deep shade of red. You should be a model. Really, you're so tall and thin. This line was really out of place to me until I read the whole book, and I think this was included to further establish why it would be so terrifying for Crystal when she inevitably turns into a chicken. Because not only does she hate chickens, but she's also beautiful, so her transformation into like a grotesque chicken human monster would be extra scary if she's already pretty. I think that's why they included the line. Maybe I'm thinking too much. But anyway, Crystal and Cole, along with a group of neighborhood kids whose names are absolutely impossible to remember because there's so many of them and they never come back, go to Vanessa's house to play a prank on her. You'll remember Vanessa from the blurb. She's some random witchy lady who happens to live in the town. Who is Vanessa? I guess you might say she's the most interesting person in Goshen Falls, and the most weird. Actually, Vanessa is like someone from a horror movie. She's kind of pretty, with long straight black hair and a pale white face. She dresses all in black. She wears black lipstick and black fingernail polish. The description of Vanessa absolutely would have excited me as a kid. At the time, I was really into Scooby-Doo and the Hex Girls, especially the main singer, and so I so badly wanted to be goth, so I would have totally been interested in this Vanessa character. Two kids, neither Crystal or Cole, just two random neighborhood kids, fill Vanessa's mailbox with water and she chases them off. Crystal is afraid that Vanessa is going to curse them all, even though she and Cole really had nothing to do with this lame water mailbox prank. So they go home and Crystal accidentally slams her hand in the fridge door. She's paranoid that this happened because of Vanessa's curse. And that night when she goes to bed, she sees a spooky cat shadow in her room. And then Vanessa comes in to get her. I swallowed hard. I watched the door slowly slide open. Staring in silence, I realized that someone was creeping into my bedroom. Someone wearing a black veil and a long black dress. Vanessa! If you've read any Goosebumps books ever, then you'll know straight away that this is a fake out. It's not actually Vanessa, but it's her younger brother Cole in a costume. It's never explained where he got a black veil and a black dress, and I have a hard time believing that their mom just had that ready in their closet. But again, children's book, trying not to nitpick. Cole leaves and Crystal has a spooky dream about a cat, and then we jump straight into the next morning for breakfast. We get some exposition dumping about how Crystal likes basketball and her friend Lucy Ann's 13th birthday is coming up. Then Cole comes in and something spooky's happening. He's already starting to turn into a chicken. I opened my mouth to answer, but Cole came charging into the room. One look at his face and Mom and I both gasped. "Cole," Mom cried. "My face," he stammered. His cheeks and forehead were covered with big sores, ugly red blotches. Except of course he's not turning into a chicken yet. This is yet another one of Goosebumps' classic fake-outs that happened almost immediately after the first fake-out. Cole isn't actually turning into a chicken, of course. He's just drawn on himself with some red marker. I guess he cleans himself up. We don't really hear much about that before he and Crystal, along with their friend Anthony, go to town to get Lucy Ann a birthday present. Cole and Anthony are tossing an egg back and forth, which is apparently something they do, and they're not watching where they're going, which causes them to run into Vanessa, the spooky witch lady, and she drops her groceries, which she is not happy about. She looks at the kids, points at them, and she says, "Chicken, chicken." The kids are kind of freaked out by this and run away. I think mostly they don't want to get in trouble for ruining all her groceries. This is obviously when the curse is set into place, so the scene with the mailbox earlier was a little bit pointless because that was sort of a fake out. They weren't cursed at that moment. I know that scene had to be there to set up Vanessa's character, but she was hardly even in that scene. It was mostly about the neighborhood side characters, so I kind of wish they had introduced Vanessa in a different way. Maybe seeing her do something vaguely spooky in public, and I don't know, just her introduction wasn't so good. But again, this is a children's book, so I'm going to try not to nitpick. We skip forward to choir practice. It seems like there's only one choir for the whole school, which makes sense, it is a small town, so Crystal and Cole are both in the same choir. There's some random throwaway detail about a spider falling on Lucy Ann's head, which is spooky to me, but it doesn't make sense because Lucy Ann is not cursed because she wasn't with them when the curse happened by Vanessa, so it's just kind of a throwaway detail that doesn't matter. Almost immediately after that, the practice starts, and when Cole tries to sing, he has a solo. All he can do is cluck. He says, "Bluck, buck, buck, bluck, bluck," and surprisingly, this one actually isn't a fake out. Crystal is pretty mad at Cole for ruining practice and making a joke of choir, but he insists that he didn't do it on purpose, and he seems genuinely freaked out, so no, not a fake out here. Looks like the chicken transformation is beginning, and when Crystal goes to bed that night, she thinks she hears a chicken clucking outside her window and assumes that one of her parents' chickens must have got loose from the coop. She goes over to the window, and there's actually not any chickens out there. She hears the clucking again and thinks it must be coming from Cole's room, but for whatever reason, she doesn't go to investigate. I thought here when I read this scene that she was going to go to Cole's room and see that he was a spooky chicken monster and we get some kind of dramatic reveal, but that didn't happen. She just went straight to bed. And when she wakes up, we pretty much immediately skip to Lucy Ann's birthday party. I know the book needs to be fast-paced to keep a child's attention, but it feels like the plot is moving at a breakneck speed. It's hard to keep a spooky atmosphere when everything is happening so quickly. And because of the quick pace, we don't actually get much description of the party other than that Crystal is having a good time. We get another classic Goosebumps line of the main character implying that something scary is about to happen, which then makes the scary thing a little less scary because we're expecting it. I really had fun until birthday cake time, and then the fun turned to horror. The cakes are brought out and Crystal tries to sing Happy Birthday, but ruins it because her lips won't work right. Instead of singing, she can only make weird clicking sounds. She tries to eat her cake, but nearly chokes on it because her mouth still won't work right. So she runs to the bathroom where we get another spooky cliffhanger. Then I dove to the medicine cabinet and gazed into the mirror. It took my eyes a few seconds to adjust, but when I could finally focus on my lips, I opened my mouth in a shrill scream of horror. This time it is not a fake out. We do get some body horror here as Crystal begins her own transformation into a chicken. Bright red, my lips poked out from my face. I ran a finger across them. Both lips were bumpy, hard and bumpy. I tapped my lips with my finger. It made a soft click. My lips were hard. They didn't feel like skin anymore. They felt as hard as fingernails. Crystal understandably freaks out and doesn't return to the party, but not before we get a line that genuinely grossed me out. Will I ever enjoy cake again, I wondered? Or will I have to pull up worms from the ground and suck them through my bird lips? Yuck. Something about the word bird lips. I just really didn't like that, but it's supposed to be spooky, so they got me there. Crystal runs home and her parents' car is conveniently not in the driveway. This is a common trend with Goosebumps and other children's literature in general because the parents need to be away so that the children can solve their own problems. Otherwise, it's not interesting if the parent just solves the problem for the child. So you'll notice parents are often absent in the narrative. That's fine. Cole runs to her, showing her that he's began to sprout feathers. He can barely talk and is mostly clucking. Crystal plucks out his feathers and it's clearly painful to him, which also kind of grossed me out. They go to bed, and then when Crystal wakes up, she's also growing feathers. She plucks them out and realizes that Vanessa's curse is obviously real. So she and Cole don't know what else to do, so they tell their mom. But as I said, the parents never solve the kids' problems in these types of book. Crystal and Cole try to tell their mom that they're turning into chickens when she says something that I actually, even as an adult, found horrifying. "That's good news," Mom replied calmly. "I need 2 more chickens for the barbecue this afternoon." That's way too scary for a kid's book, so naturally it's another fake out. She's actually on the phone with someone who will be bringing extra chickens to the barbecue that afternoon. The barbecue was never mentioned before now, but as I said, the book requires constant action to keep children interested, so I guess this barbecue is just going to happen with no foreshadowing. Crystal and Cole try desperately to explain their situation, but their mom blatantly ignores them as she prepares for the barbecue. I think this scene sort of speaks to a child's fear that their parents don't really care about how they feel and won't listen to their problems. But this moment is a little ham-fisted to me because nobody around Crystal and Cole seem to notice their physical deformities, which is odd to me because they're growing feathers, their lips look weird, like they look like chickens and nobody notices except Crystal and Cole, which it just kind of kills the immersion. It's just weird. Crystal and Cole remember that Anthony was there that day and decide to go see if he is cursed. But before they leave, we get this funny line about Pop-Tarts. "We each grabbed a glass of orange juice and a Pop-Tart, which we ate raw." I know that's not relevant to the plot, but I just thought describing a Pop-Tart as raw was funny. I think they mean not toasted, but I never toasted Pop-Tarts as a kid, so I guess I always ate raw Pop-Tarts. That line just had me cracking up. So Crystal and Cole go to Anthony's house, and they're surprised to see that he is totally fine, not turning into a chicken at all. And he also doesn't seem to notice that they are turning into chickens and think that they're just playing some weird joke on him. They realize they're not going to get anywhere with him, so they return home back to the barbecue scene. And it seems really weird to me that they split up the barbecue scene like that. They started the barbecue, went and did something else, and then went back to the barbecue, which is weird. The Anthony scene would have fit in maybe after the barbecue. It's weird to put it in the middle. But the barbecue scene isn't even really described, as the narrative instead focuses on Cole becoming more chicken-like. He's outside in his parents' chicken coop, pecking up seeds with the other chickens, and their mom immediately assumes he's trying to embarrass her in front of their guests by acting like a chicken. So she sends Crystal out to grab him, but instead she also starts pecking the seeds. "I really did plan to bring him into the house to Mom. I really did plan to drag him away from there, but those seeds look so delicious. I bumped some chickens out of the way, then I dropped down on my knees, lowered my head, and started pecking away." And that's it. That's the end of the barbecue scene. There's no more barbecue scene, that's it. The next morning, Crystal plucks her feathers before school, and then when she gets there, she's told one of the girls on the basketball team is sick and she must take their place in the game. We then immediately jump straight into the basketball game with no sense of how much time has passed. I'm assuming the game must have been the same day right after school, but it's really weird how she's told, "Oh, you gotta play in this game," and then the game immediately happens. There's no time in between. And of course, Crystal isn't playing very well because she's turning into a chicken. She can't stop clucking and bobbing her head as she runs, and the kids on the sidelines laugh at her. So it's showing that people clearly are noticing that she is having weird behavior, but they somehow don't realize she's turning into a chicken. It's just weird because in this scene, we are told people are noticing this transformation. But I do think that the kids laughing at her does speak to a genuine fear that kids have of not being accepted by their peers, because nobody wants to be known as that weird kid who always acts like a chicken. Crystal's knees and elbows begin to lock up on her as she further turns into a chicken. So finally, she ends up sprouting feathers in front of the whole gym, freaks out and runs away. And even though a whole gym full of people saw her grow feathers, nobody ever brings it up again. So again, it just seems weird to me that Crystal and Cole are the only ones aware of this chicken transformation, and nobody around them seems to notice or care in any way. I don't know if that's part of the curse, but it just came off as very weird to me. They go home, they have dinner, and after dinner that night, Crystal and Cole decide that they must go to apologize to Vanessa so they can go back to normal. Thankfully, their parents have a plot-convenient PTA meeting to go to, so the siblings can easily sneak out of the house. They go straight to Vanessa's house, but it seems like she's not there. They peek inside the window and see a lot of books, so they assume straight away those must be spell books. The front door is unlocked, so they go inside to try to find a book that'll help them reverse the chicken spell. Crystal reaches for a book, and uh-oh, Vanessa actually is there. The floorboards groaned beneath my shoes. I stepped beside the couch and stared at the pile of old books. I reached out for the book on top of the stack when a furious shriek made me stop. "Oh!" I pulled my hand back. "Vanessa!" Cole cried. Except, of course, Vanessa isn't there, and this is just another fake-out. It's actually just a cat that somehow Cole mistook for a human being. Like, I know he's dumb, but come on, nobody's that dumb. And when we see Vanessa's cat sitting there, I thought we'd get a callback to Crystal's spooky dream earlier about a cat. And we'd be told like maybe she was dreaming about Vanessa's cat and it's the same cat from the dream. But that doesn't happen, so it feels like a missed opportunity. And so her weird cat dream earlier doesn't really mean anything, which is why I didn't describe it. But we get immediately another fake out when Cole turns on the light so they can look at the books and they see Vanessa standing there. But of course it's not her. It's actually a self-portrait she has hung up for some reason. And buddy, what are you meowing for? I know fake outs are sort of Goosebumps thing, but good lord, it gets old fast, especially when they do a back-to-back fake out within like 2 pages of each other. It's just sort of annoying. The kids find a book called Chicken, 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 but before they can check that it's the right book, a loud bang scares them off. And the two make it all the way home before they realize it's not a spell book, it's actually just a cookbook. Crystal insists they have to go straight back to Vanessa's house because they're running out of time. And we get some sort of spooky body horror here that actually is a little freaky to me. My eyes had changed into small round circles, and the shape of my head was changing too, growing narrow. My eyes were far apart now, moving to the sides of my head. Yuck. But yet again, it's weird to me that this scene was split up by some sort of diversion that feels like it's only there to pad out the novel. They were already at her house, they go all the way home, and then they go straight back to her house. So I just don't really like that. I wish they had just stayed at her house and finished out the scene. But anyway, Crystal and Cole go straight back to Vanessa's house and walk right in, like they own the place. And they somehow immediately find the book they need amongst what must be hundreds of books in her house. And so they flip to a page that has a spell that says human into chicken. But what they really need is chicken into human so that they can turn back into humans. So they decide the best way to do this is to reverse the spell. And I think this is actually perfect child logic, so I really actually enjoyed this detail. So they follow the spell completely backwards, but somehow this causes them to turn into giant chickens. Crystal manages to pick up the book with her huge hands and conducts the spell again, but this time they turn into baby chicks. And we get a genuinely scary scene as the cat tries to eat Crystal. I tried to kick, I tried to thrash my arms, tried to wiggle free, but I was helpless against the giant cat. Its big paws squeezed me until I could barely breathe. The cat even tries to vor her, but I don't think vor was a term in 1997. I'm definitely not Googling that to find out. And if you don't know what vor is, please also don't Google it. I'm like begging you, just take my word for it. Oh, the cat's hot breath roared over me. The inside of its mouth felt so hot, so disgustingly sticky and wet. The cat spits out Crystal, and she comes to the horrifying realization that it's just playing with her before it eats her. But thankfully, Vanessa, or maybe not so thankfully, depending on how you think, Vanessa returns home and grabs the two off the ground before they can be eaten by the cat. And she knows that they must be Crystal and Cole and taunts them. They try to apologize to her, but they can only cheep. There's a plot-convenient typewriter nearby, so Crystal manages to break free from Vanessa and peck a message out. Vanessa, we're really sorry. We didn't mean to spill your groceries. We came to apologize. Which seems like a really long message to type out. Logistically, that seems difficult, but anyway, try not to nitpick. Vanessa's not so pleased with the apology and tells them that it's too late for that. That's until Crystal manages to peck out the word please. Well, she said finally, I like the way you say please. She lifted me up gently and set me down in her palm beside Cole. Politeness is so important, Vanessa said, holding us up to her face, especially for young people. That's what I care about more than anything else in the world, good manners. So we get the moral of the story, shoehorned in and spoon-fed to us without any nuance. Kids, don't be a rude little jerk or the town witch might turn you into a chicken. All you have to do is say please and thank you and have your good manners, or you won't be turned into a chicken. Vanessa goes on to say that most of her books aren't actually spell books, but etiquette books. So Crystal types out another message thanking Vanessa for teaching them a lesson, and Vanessa absolutely loses her mind over it. I don't believe it, Vanessa exclaimed. She tore the sheet of paper from the typewriter and read it again. A thank you note, she cried. You wrote me a thank you note. She gazed down at Cole and me with a broad smile. No kids today ever write thank you notes, she cried. This is the politest thing I ever saw. She danced around with it. A thank you note, an actual thank you note. So again, another ham-fisted message of old people complaining about the next generation. Kids these days don't have any manners. Kids these days suck. Nothing new, just old generation hating on the new generation for simply existing. Vanessa changes the two back into humans and even is polite enough to go get them some Cokes because she says she knows that the transformation must have made them real thirsty. So Crystal is obviously relieved, thinking that their problems are now over. And let me tell you, you've never read a Goosebumps novel if you think that the story is just going to end here. Cole drinks his Coke and lets out a mighty burp. When he finished, he lowered his glass and let out the loudest burp I ever heard. Cole burst out laughing. I couldn't help myself. It was such a funny burp. I started laughing too. I was still laughing when Vanessa stepped in front of me. What is her problem, I wondered. Then she pointed her finger first at Cole, then at me, and whispered, "Pig, pig." And there it is. Here comes the iconic Goosebumps last page twist. The siblings managed to avoid being turned into chickens, only to be turned into pigs. Isn't that spooky? Isn't that so wacky and wild? And that's it. That's the end of Chicken Chicken. So in conclusion, I might agree with that blogger guy that this is the worst Goosebumps book. I didn't come into this series expecting to start with the worst book, so we'll see if any of the other books I cover can top this one. As I said, the concept of turning into a chicken isn't scary to me, but many of the other Goosebumps stories have just as crazy plot lines and manage to be spooky. We did get some good descriptions of body horror here and there, but the scare factor was often ruined by all the fake-outs, which is a common trend in Goosebumps books in general, but this one I think was especially egregious with them. Furthermore, I think many of the characters existed only to further the plotline and had no real traits or personalities. Many side characters existed for a single scene and then never came back again, which I don't think is very good utilization of characters. Again, I know this is a book written for kids, so I'm going to try not to nitpick too much, but kids deserve good media too. Kids are smart enough to enjoy good storylines, good characters, and so I think this book, Chicken Chicken, really missed the mark to me, and it didn't hold up to the standard I have in my head when I fondly think back to other more iconic Goosebumps books I enjoyed as a child. Let me know down in the comments below if you've ever read Chicken Chicken or if you were just as baffled as it by me as an adult. And I'll see you again soon with another lesser known, hopefully better Goosebumps book. Stay spooky, guys!